Hello, everybody. I'm with two amazing people here. I met them in the Nang Nomad Fest, and I think it's gonna be valuable to have like small conversation about culture, identity, living beyond borders. I'm here with
I'm Freeman.
Freeman and
Ibrahima.
all right. Where are you guys from?
I'm living in Australia now, but originally I'm from Hong Kong, and I used to live in the UK and Singapore and different countries.
Yeah, a little bit more complicated for me. I was born in Senegal. My dad is half French and half Senegalese. My mom is half from Cape Verde and half Portuguese. I grew up in Germany from the age of 14, and I moved to the UAE 10 years ago. And I still live there and worked across the globe afterwards.
That's amazing. And you guys, like, if you are watching this for the first time, I'm Mohammed. I'm a digital nomad, and I'm from Syria originally. So I thought this would be a very interesting interview or convo to have with people who are living freely beyond borders and who grew up in different cultures. So I grew up in Syria. I lived in the Middle East most of the years, and now I'm living in Vietnam with my family. And every one of us had their own story to share, and I just want to share, like, have a conversation. I just enjoyed both of your presentations during the Nomad Fest. How does it impact a person growing in multicultural environment?
Should I go first? Okay. I think it will enrich you in a lot of ways to be able to grow up in different environments, especially if they're culturally different. For me, I'm speaking out of my own experience. For me, it was important to grow up already in Senegal. I was divided into cultures because my mom and my dad are very different from a different cultural background. So already then I needed to adapt when I was with my dad's family and when I was with my mom's family. Therefore, I needed to be a little bit more polite in one way because that's what was expecting from me. If you're a child, you don't speak up to older people in a certain way. But my mom was always somebody who pushed me to ask questions if I didn't understand, right? Therefore, already growing up, it was like either here you're asking too many questions and here why you're not asking, why you're just doing. So therefore, it was already at a young age already navigating that. And then afterwards, when you grow up, it's like once you move to another country where you have to not only learn the language, but trying to understand why people doing things. And then the more you're exposed to it, you realize, yeah, I'm doing it a certain way, but people do it differently. Just because they are used to something else. And it's just like, oh, maybe there's something I can pick up from this, and maybe something that I pick up from that. And one example here in Southeast Asia, or in Asia in general, is like taking off your shoes when you come into somebody's home just makes sense. It just makes sense because you're dragging all the dirt from outside into your home. And even if you never thought about it, once you're in there, like, oh yeah, I'll do it at home as well because it makes sense. There's always this thing that you can pick up from any culture. That's what I really appreciate about, growing up that way. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow, I really love what you're saying. There's so much, I think, this overlapping conversation of how, we of people of different skin color come to this point together, right? Because this is the identity I call as a global citizen. And this is a transition, of our cultural and consciousness, right? To emerge to become a species together. And in my own story, right, I grew up in Hong Kong. And it's an interesting city because, people call it the Orient in the East and the New York and in the East, however you want to see it. I grew up in a culture where I was talking to Muhammad earlier, we have to learn three languages to be trilingual because we are British colony, so we have to learn English. Everything is in English, but at the same time, we speak Cantonese, which is the native language. But because we are also culturally, politically part of China, then we are learning Mandarin as well. So it's like a mix of cultural system. We celebrate both Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, and also Christmas as well. So sometimes it's a really beautiful diversity that I grew up to be able to have this. A mix, of understanding of different cultural dimension as you were sharing in your talk, which I really appreciate a lot because I used to study Oxford as well. But I do love your connect model, and I think that helps us navigate, to transit this what I call this evolution of our consciousness, right? From this egocentric place where we are thinking about only ourselves to the next step, which is ethnocentric. Which is where the old generation back a few decades ago we're separated by countries, by nationality, by skin color, hair color, eye color. But then we are coming to a place where it's a bit more egalitarian. We are harmonizing, together. And what I love, in the presentation you mentioned is actually showing us we are transcending so much about culture itself, because culture is now not just defined by nationality. It's not defined by countries. It's actually defined by how we see the values as a community together. And I think that's also what I experienced in my path. When I start solo traveling to Europe, backpacking, studying in the UK, working for a multinational company, and start realizing, wow, like the way that I'm seeing is completely different from others.
That's true.
And I think one thing that I really want to leave for the audience is because I'm a mindset coach as well, and I love talking about the power of the mind. And one thing that as a traveler, as we will probably experience is most of the time we think our mind works like a camera, right? That we see, we are in a beautiful resort here, beautiful blue sky, three handsome gentlemen here, some flowers here. We thought it's a camera, but it's not. The reality is our mind works like a projector, because there's a screen and there's this projection of our own emotions and thoughts and cultural perspective, the filter. And once we recognize the difference between that and we can become an observer, now we become so much more agile and flexible. And I believe this is the value for most people like us to be cross-cultural travelers as a superpower, as you were saying earlier, right? To be able to not just realizing the cultural difference, but us, when we're navigating the world, it gives us this whole new different worldview, which actually gives us a really accelerated path, a catalyst for modern day success.
Amazing. And I can relate too much with what you are saying and to your presentation, especially like when you grew up in a total different environment, you're used to some certain bubble that's surrounded with, and given by your culture. But then when you travel and when you start to experience different identities, different cultures, you start to adapt to different realities, especially if you not only travel but live for a certain time. Total different environment, different language. This, I think, changed your perspective. And definitely I experienced that. Like I grew up in a Muslim environment, some conservative environment as well, but through travel and even living in a total different environment that made me more acceptance of different realities, different religion, different identity shifts. And I think that's very valuable for someone who is living, who's stuck maybe, to go abroad and live differently, at least for a certain time. What do you think about that?
I think widening your point of view, because you only know what you know, right? It sounds cheesy to say that, but you're not questioning things because you've been told by your parents, everyone around you does the same thing, and you take it as that's the norm, right? Because that's what you're used to. And then once you go outside, you see that things can be done differently. The only thing that I would tell people is just believe that people are not idiots. They're doing things for a good reason. There might be something that you might pick up. What is the word I use? I use on say, I think, don't be arrogant to think that you are the best possible thing and your mindset is the best. You will learn something from anyone. And that's the example I was talking to somebody else. I was like, the best tip I can give you is try to be more interested than interesting. And that's what we always try to do when we speak to someone.
That's really good.
Being interesting, like that's what I do. No, try to listen. Be interested. Ask more questions. And at the end, you might find one thing that you might want to implement, and it might be helpful. That's what I would give people as an example or as a recommendation for them. It might be it.
Amazing. It's a beautiful question. I really love that reframe, from interested to interesting, right? Because again, as cross-cultural travelers, I think one thing is so important to really understand is there's no right or wrong. And one thing that I really pick up, and that's this Rumi quote I love, Sophie quote. Out beyond the wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And I believe global citizens like us have reached that field. There's no destination, it's a journey. But I think we have, one way or another, been that field because we realize it's not about right or wrong anymore. And we're so conditioned, even in societies and countries, and even world leaders, as we are speaking today. There are missiles flying in the skies, in countries, and in the states. There are way more political conflicts than we ever had.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy in a way because we are still stuck in that paradigm as a species that they are right or wrong, right? But I think what we just shared is so beautiful because people like ourselves who have this. Taking this step, to go outside our comfort zone, to build a new life internationally, to reconstruct and redesign a life through traveling. This helped us to gain this perspective to realize it's not about right or wrong anymore. It's like how we can work together.
Exactly, definitely.
How can we be one global village?
I hope world leaders understand that.
That would be good.
Maybe they want to travel more now with intention.
This would be.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for the convo.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it.
so much.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah.